committee meeting of March 18th. Thanks for joining. I'll turn things right over to Deputy Finance Director Mike Tucker.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Karen. And as Karen mentioned, I'm Michael Tucker, Deputy Finance Director for the City of Portsmouth. Today, the Fee Committee will review the proposed fiscal year 27 fee schedule updates submitted by different city departments. The goal of this process is to ensure that our municipal fees remain aligned with the cost of providing services, while also maintaining transparency and consistency across departments. Under the city's fee ordinance, municipal fees are reviewed annually as part of the budget process and adopted by resolution during budget adoption. Fee revenue, which can be seen actually right on this page, currently represents a relatively small portion of general fund revenues, roughly 2% of the total. So while fees are not a primary revenue driver like property taxes, they're intended to help offset the costs of specific services that directly benefit users. This process helps ensure that the cost of providing services is shared appropriately between taxpayers and users of those services. For today's meeting, the committee's role is to review departmental fee recommendations, discuss the rationale for any proposed changes, and provide guidance or recommendations before the schedule is finalized through the budget process. These recommendations will ultimately move forward as part of the fiscal year 2027 budget resolution for the fee schedule. Our fee committee is composed of 3 voting members, Councillor Tabor, Councillor Moreau, and Councillor Bagley, as well as 2 non-voting members, Karen Kennard, and City Manager, and Michael Tucker, Deputy Finance Director. I'd now like to move to the first agenda item, which is the approval of the 2/13/25 fee committee minutes. The minutes of this meeting have been provided to the committee in advance. I'd like to ask the committee if there are any corrections or revisions to these minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, so
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. So just to move a little forward, when departments evaluate potential fee adjustments, we generally look at several factors: cost of providing the service, time since the fee was last adjusted, our administrative and processing costs, comparisons to surrounding municipalities, and finally policy considerations such as accessibility or economic impact. Our goal is not to simply increase fees, but to ensure they remain reasonable and reflective of actual service costs. Now we are going to walk through the departments in the following order. One item that has changed from the original agenda is that the health department did have changes, so we are going to go in the order that the fee schedule was presented, and it will be as follows, starting with the city clerk, planning and sustainability, fire, public works, health, parking and transportation, water and sewer, and finally ending with Prescott Park. So to start, we are first going to go over the changes for city clerk, and I will present those changes. On this beginning page, you can see the page number that it's related to, so we're going to start with page 6.
And just a reminder that all changes are highlighted in gray, and if folks access the packet online, they can follow that same procedure.
So these changes were presented to us by the city clerk. A lot of these changes originally had pretty older dates of when they had been first put in place. So oftentimes they're, like mentioned before, there's just a consideration of the administrative cost of the city and whether or not we find it reasonable to increase the cost. So the first one listed is the billiards and bowling license that will be increasing or proposing to increase from $25 to $30. Next, we have coin-operated amusement device lanes. For each of the first 30 machines per year, we are proposing an increase of $75 to $100. And for each machine over 30 per year, we're proposing an increase of $10 to $15. Next, we have boxing and wrestling licenses, proposing an increase of $10 to $15 each day. We had no changes on this page. Page 8, hawkers and peddlers license, proposing a change from $250 to $275 per year. And pawnbrokers license, proposing a change from $50 to $65 per year. And finally, on our last page of the city clerk, we are proposing a change for A-frame signs, mannequins, racks, etc. from $75 for each obstruction to $100. For the ward checklist per set, proposing an increase of $75 to $125. Event permits, proposing an increase from $50 to $75. Voter certification, proposing an increase from $5 to $10. And finally, for the articles of agreement filing, we are proposing an increase of $5 to $25. For any of these specific items, since the city clerk is not here, we may need to do some additional research, but are welcome to take any questions.
And if I could add to what Mike has shared, these are the ones that Kelly flagged before she left, so it is anticipated that some of the other older fees will be reviewed and potentially increased at this time next year. But these were ones she felt strongly with moving forward.
I move to accept the changes as proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just
Oh,
the A-frame signs, mannequins, racks, my concern with raising that fee is we have not great compliance. And I'm worried that by raising the fee, we'll increase non-compliance. Has that been considered?
Good question. I think we will increase enforcement of A-frames.
I just don't want to, where the people that are following the rules are paying a higher burden. And a lot of people aren't following them. So.
Yep.
Oh, in other words, you're saying they're not even asking
If they're-
permission.
I think
I was trying to figure out what you were getting at.
maybe aren't aware that they
We'll
need
have a
that as
heightened
well.
effort to enforce.
it's getting to be that season. Well,
Things to trip over.
motion's on the table. Any other questions?
That was all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next section that we will be reviewing is the Planning and Sustainability Department's changes. So I'd like to, bring Peter Britz to the table.
I think our first change for Peter is on page 12.
Yes.
Wetland conditional use permit. So this recommends a fee increase of the wetland impact or wetland buffer impact of up to 1,000 feet, so 1,000 square feet from $500 to $700. To keep it in line and more current with the other fees with it. I'll just go unless someone stops me. So the Board of Adjustment, we have a total application cap right now. I'm sorry, first one is a minimum application fee. We're adding a minimum application fee to the Board of Adjustment of $200 because we don't have one now, and to be consistent with other boards and to make sure we at least capture some revenue for the work done when someone goes to the Board of Adjustment. Importantly, there should be a "if not listed below" note next to that, which Mike has maybe already added
Yeah.
or will add.
The version that I pulled up, I have made in the one that we will be
Because-
using. Yep.
Because there's a slight discount for sheds and what we call them accessory structures, but sheds and garages and things that are small that we figure worth the extra cost. And then a total application fee increase from $3,000 to $4,000. This fee is over 10 years old and we thought it made sense to increase that. And then moving down to page 12, page 13, for a per $1,000 evaluation of new construction, we recommend raising that fee, which was from 2002 from $5 to $10. And then we recommend raising the commercial fee for a total application fee from $4,000 to $5,000 to keep it ahead of the residential.
So these are non-residential applications, so these are like all commercials, right?
So a commercial variance.
Commercial,
Or special exception.
I'm just curious as to, we're doubling the actual valuation fee, but we're only increasing by $1,000. So I guess, what do we think the average of, how high do we bump up against that? The 5,000,
I
or the
don't-
4,000 right now?
I don't have that number.
Okay. I was just curious as to whether or not maybe the maximum should be higher, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the residential's 4,000, so we thought we'd go up 1,000 above the residential and, but we don't have I don't have the actual data here. I can look into that.
Thank you.
Well, this would be
And
essentially capped at a $5 million value.
A $5 million project.
And
At the $10, yeah.
at the $10, yeah. So anything larger than that only pays the 5,000.
Right. That's why I think then it makes sense to go up a little bit higher than the 5,000.
I would support a motion to increase that 5,000 number.
To what? What are you thinking?
8,000? If we're doubling the.
Yeah. Right, double and double? Yeah.
And we can change once the council adopts this, if we decided that we've made a mistake, we could change it. We don't have to wait till next year, so to speak.
Right, I mean, it's incorporated as part of the budget. It's best to make changes now, so that it goes to the council with our recommendation.
It's part of the final budget motions in June.
Right.
The fee schedule, but you have up until the adoption of the budget to
To change.
continue to discuss.
I would like to make a motion that we up the total application fee to the 8,000 versus the 5,000.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'll continue. The next one is site plan review. We raised this, again, this is based on the per thousand of site cost, and we recommend raising them from $5 to $10 per thousand of site cost. The total application was raised in '24, but we didn't consider raising that this time. The next section is the historic district, and the first one is to increase the fee for 2 dwelling units from $150 to $200, and that way there's a $50 increase from 1 dwelling to 2 dwellings, and then a $50 increase from 2 dwellings to 3 dwellings, and then we have a $150 fee proposed where it's currently $100 for each dwelling over 3. It should say not 4, so that's a typo there.
Yep, and that line has been corrected above. It was just a late change after there, but as you can see on the screen, for each unit over
Or
3.
3.
And then, as you go down, so there's a per $1,000 evaluation, we're increasing the non-residential fee from $5 per thousand to $10 per thousand.
Should we do the same thing here?
Just-
I was gonna say, should we be consistent on the cap? I think it makes, and that would put us at 11.
I move that we move the non-residential applications fee for 1,000 valuation of new construction
Cap.
cap to be $11,000.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Just to clarify that, would that be an $11 fee?
No, it's the one below that.
It's the one
Oh,
below
I
that.
see, I see.
It's the one that's not grayed out.
Thank
It's the
you.
5,500.
Thank you.
We figured it should match. If we're gonna go from 5 to 10, we need to
Yep.
double the max too.
And then the other one on historic district is the sign fee. We're currently $100 charge for a historic sign. In the historic district, the only signs the HTC reviews are ones that need a variance. So if they need a variance, they need the variance approval and they need the HTC approval. And right now, the fee is $100 for that sign, and we're requesting that go down to $200. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I move we accept the planning department table of fees as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the fire department. Well,
Skipping inspection?
yes, there were
Okay.
no changes from the inspection department.
I guess I didn't realize I went through a whole department.
That's okay. Our changes that are being proposed are gonna be on page 26.
Good afternoon, committee. As you'll see on page 26, we are proposing a change to the place of assembly permitting by adding in occupancy of 1,001 floor for an additional $250 fee.
We have places that big.
No, but the thought was that we better plan for
Plan
it
for
with
it.
some of the expansion that was going on, that we needed to make sure that we captured that. And then if you turn your attention to page 28, the other change that we're proposing is on state-required dwelling units for residential placements, foster care adoptions, and family daycares from a $30 fee to waive the fee completely. And then on page 29, you will see that we have changed our fees with respect to unfounded emergency calls for alarm systems on the 4th, 5th, 6th, and then subsequent offenses.
We did that with the police last year.
Yes. These, are certainly a tool that we use that are progressive in nature, trying to get folks' attention to be able to come into compliance so that we're not wasting folks' time, and to get them in compliance too with not resetting alarm systems prior to the fire department's arrival so that we can actually see what the issue was. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Now I make a motion, we move to approve the fire department changes as presented.
Second?
I agree, but I just wanna thank the chief or whoever's idea it was to eliminate the fees for residential placements, foster care adoptions, and daycares. I think that was,
Yeah, that came from
A smart idea.
staff when they were reviewing what other municipalities charged to make sure that we were in line, and that kind of stuck out as an outlier, so why not remove it?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Chief McClellan. Yep, next up we have Public Works.
Good afternoon, Peter Rice, Director of Public Works.
I think you start on page 31.
Yep.
So what you see before you is encumbrance permit fees, which is in alignment with the recently adjusted encumbrance permit program, which allows for a renewal from the initial 30 days to a 60 days, and then an additional renewal with the city manager's approval for another 30 days on top of that, for a total of potentially 90 days. The fees that were previously charged were $50. There's a significant amount of effort that goes into monitoring this and getting these approved. So the adjustment to $150 per encumbrance fee for the first 30 days is what we believe warranted. The additional fees beyond that are often due to the fact that when folks ask for additional time, we have to go out and monitor and see what exactly is happening and whether the impacts have occurred. And there's oftentimes more resident and neighbor input that requires a bit more investigation and working with the contractor to try to resolve things. So this additional fee reflects that anticipated additional effort. And then finally, we have a not less than $300 for the additional 30 days, giving the city manager flexibility if there are extenuating circumstances where there are potential significant impacts associated with the additional time that we're able to really address what those costs are related to, whether it's additional staff time to actually be out there and help make sure things are done properly or done in a timely manner, whether there's additional flagging or whatever it takes to get those things done.
Become project manager.
Yes, and things like that. So it gives us a bit more flexibility. So those are the from the encumbrance, and then there are fees that fall into the licensing by council, and traditionally that's been 5 cents a square foot per day. That number was originally intended to be based on comparable costs associated with renting a parking space. And when we originally did that, the fee was a lot higher than anticipated, and the council decided to, have a break associated with that. Since that time, there's been inflation, other things, and so we believe that bringing it up to 10 cents is appropriate at this time. It really makes developers think twice about spending a lot of time on city property.
Does that work out average to one parking space? Just just because I can't do the math in my head.
It's about $15 if you use that number. It's $50 currently, and you'll hear from the parking director the request to bump that daily rent up to $60. But if you did 50, a typical parking space is 8 by 22, works out to be roughly 25 cents a space, 25 cents a foot. So this is heavily discounted from that.
Thank you.
And then the next item is the Memorial Bench Perpetual Care Fee. Currently, we have a donation form that has a fee associated with it, or it's a cost to get the bench. What it does not include is the perpetual care. So by having this in the ordinance or in the fee structure, it gives us the ability to put in the form, if you get, a bench, this is perpetual care, and that, there are many benches around the city.
Just like artwork, everything needs
Yes,
maintenance.
it needs maintenance, and it's just an acknowledgement that there's gonna be future work associated with that. And the final change is down at tires. This adjustment is really just due to the cost of disposal.
I'd move we accept Public Works fee changes as proposed.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Todd, you're up next, and Tim. You have recreation, right?
Oh, we actually have one other change that,
I was gonna say,
I don't see any changes in
No,
recreation.
that came in, we have health actually, 41, page 41.
It's health next.
Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. So Health is proposing an increase in the fundraiser fee, and this is a temporary event fee with all proceeds donated to the cause at hand. Currently, we have small events with just a handful of vendors that we have to permit and inspect on site the day of the event to open the event to the public. And we also have large events that have multiple vendors, sometimes up to 60. And so the large events take considerably more time than the small events. So we've divided this fee into two categories, with a $100 increase for just the smaller under 10 events, and a $500 fee for the 10 and over vendor events, which takes usually all of us staffed on site when it gets up to the 40 and 50.
We might want to look at the language because you have less than 10 or more than 10, but not exactly 10.
Well, 10's free. No.
I don't know which way you want to go, but you need to go one way or the other. The lawyer in me is telling you 10 doesn't have a charge right now.
You're thinking under 10 would be the 200 and 10 and over.
So we'll go with 10, 10 and over.
And the last time this was increased was in 2014.
So 10 or more.
10 or more would be better, yes.
Any other changes?
No.
Move to accept the health department. Oh,
Move to change the language to read 10 or more for the permit line being added in fiscal year 27.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then make that motion.
Move to accept the health department fee changes
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ben Fletcher from Parking and Transportation. And those changes are gonna be seen on page 43 to 7.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just a real quick preface, the parking system is priced to help adjust behaviors regarding the demand profiles of the different parking areas, such as on-street and lot, and the different garages, and so on and so forth. So some of this discussion, you'll see that the requests here are interlinked with one another, and for the purpose of a behavior management situation, as opposed to just purely to change the fee structure. The first one you'll see here is sign permit private parking lot, last change in FY21. This has been $50 for a while. We changed it to annually in FY26 as opposed to a one-time fee. And this year, we're proposing to move it to $250. I think we've only got one user right now. It just matches the loading zone permit, so we figured skin in the game kind of thing. So on to the next one, which actually relates to the one after it. The valet station from high occupancy metered parking spaces was changed in 25 to match meter rentals, which is the next line, to $50 per space per day. The proposal here is to go to $60, again, to match the $60 per space per day in the next line. The temporary metered space permit was last updated in FY18 when the average transaction was $1.65. Now the average transaction is $3.95, so there's a tremendous difference in value of the space over time. So this basically reflects that, and that is why you'd see the valet go up with it, so they would match. Sure.
Just a question. You said you put in for the high occupancy, but don't we just have occupancy now because we don't have two different areas? So shouldn't we get rid of that language?
A couple of years ago, or last year, I believe, we added back the $35 for areas outside of the downtown, because when we got a request in, say, the West End or what have you, for a dumpster or when a house was being renovated, we needed a remedy for that, so that's what we
That's what
did.
you did.
So
Okay,
that
thank you.
actually is added back in. You'll see that in the second line there, was those 35.
Okay.
Where one is designated downtown and the other one's designated citywide.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So on to the next one. Again, this is kind of an interlinked conversation. So looking at High Hanover Parking Garage, last changed in FY21 for the hourly rate to go from $2 to $3. Now, this is in service of the relationship presently between Hanover and Foundry of $2 to $1. And you'll see in a moment when we discuss the Foundry Garage, moving to $3 would keep the demand profile between the two facilities the same. For transient parking, there's a different discussion to be had for monthly. So that's the reason to move that there. And then below that, you'll see Sunday parking maximum. It's been $5 since FY21. To move that to $8, and again, that discussion matches what's down in Foundry so that both garages have the same behavior. And I recognize there might be some consternation about going from 0 to 8. I can help ease the tension on that. We only see about 12 to 14 of these a week, because the people that live in that area, they walk into town from home. So it doesn't affect a high number of people, but it does match the two facilities.
I can tell you it was probably used a lot more this year because of parking bans and because a lot of storms on the
certainly
weekend.
the ban, yeah.
People are all putting them in from the neighborhood to get them off the streets. So
And that's a positive thing. We want that, So
Right.
but the snow rates are matching equal. So that actually the logic is consistent to have the Sunday match because the snow matches.
right. So I would like to make a motion that we go from free to $5 and not free to $8, just so that even if we go up again next year to match, I just feel like if we're $1 less hourly rate, then jumping up for residents, it seems like a big jump to me, but.
I was actually gonna propose that we keep the free parking on Sunday. The history of that goes back to Nancy Clayburgh when she was on the council. And it originally was Hanover. Hanover was priced for Sunday for residents, so it then moved to Foundry. And now we're talking about taking it away. And in the small scheme of parking, it makes sense. In the big scheme of taxpayers having shoulder a big tax increase this year, I think the free Sunday parking is a benefit I'd like to see.
I could get behind that
I
argument.
guess I disagree with that. I mean, on Sundays, you can park anywhere downtown on the street for free until noon, I believe. Parking's a scarce resource, and when we give it away, we're not affecting behavior in the ways that we want to.
But with a little bit of residents that are actually using it, and it's a way to be able to make the residents feel like we're giving them something. So I would argue that if the residents are truly not using it as much as, if they're not taking up half the parking garage on a Sunday, right? They're less than 20 spots.
Yeah, that group typically walks in because the West End is so close to
Oh,
town.
right, but people who live outside of downtown could park there for free and walk into town and be closer, but they're clearly not using it, right? So I guess leaving it for free to me means, well, taxes are going up. You're right. Inflation's going up. The budget's going to go up whether we like it or not. So if we can just tell the residents there's something, one day a week, you can go downtown and not have to pay for parking, I think it's a bonus, so.
Yeah, and for a lot of residents who were familiar with Sunday free with Hanover, this is a way.
Used to use it, yeah.
We can still,
And just for point of clarification, and I know you know this, but the general public, if they watch the show, is that parking is a fee associated with the use, and it is not a tax. So
Correct.
the benefits to the taxpayer are that the parking division does spin out 2.5 directly and an additional close to 4 or 5 million in indirect benefits to the tax, lowering the tax rate about $500 per average household. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not arguing against it. I just want to make sure the general public knows that, you know, that this is not impacting taxes per se.
No, we're not raising your taxes by not
By
giving
doing this.
away
Correct.
free
Yeah, that's what
parking.
I just wanted to make that clear.
We're actually, because your taxes are growing up because of the budget, not because of a fee.
I just think, you know, a homeowner who is paid $8,000-9,000 a year in property taxes, this is one small way we could say, we're doing something for you as a resident. So that's my opinion. I would propose a motion to keep the resident Sunday free parking at Foundry.
Second,
Favor?
And
Aye. And opposed. Our motion carries 2-1.
my request to have 3 on this committee is finally paid off.
Was that specific to the Foundry Place?
Yeah.
Yes, just the Foundry, yeah.
So to back the conversation back up to Hanover, is 5 to 8 up for discussion, or is 5 to 8 okay with everybody?
I'm okay with 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that takes us down to the Foundry Garage and the discussion with Hanover going to 3, Foundry going to 2 for the same reason of the relationship we have between those two transient parking products. Again, monthly is a different discussion. The transient parking product is designed to have a higher turn on the on-street, a longer length of stay at Hanover, and an even longer length of stay down at Foundry. And I can go over what those length of stays are currently if you'd like to see how we're managing that behavior even at the price levels we're at, if that's interesting to the committee. But that is the reason behind going to the $2.
I ask a question first. Knowing what I know about parking, our most valuable parking is the on-street parking, which is currently $2.
For each of the first 3 hours, and then it jumps to 5.
So I guess in my mind, it would be logical to, at some point in the near future, make the street price match the High Hanover price.
So there has been some preliminary discussions within this group to bring something before council, because that is the one parking item that has to go through 3 readings.
Right,
And
because it's ordinance.
what logically would make sense, if you'd like to open this discussion, is presently we have $2 and $2 and $2, and then it goes to 5. So we have about 89% of people turning that space over voluntarily. Remember, we used to write citations, so there was a punitive judgment for them to stay longer. Now they can stay longer, but that we're giving an economic incentive to move into the garage. The length of stay on street is a little over 2.5 hours, a little less than 2.5 hours. The length in the Hanover garage is a little over 4. So you have 2 different dynamics here. One is a stop and shop, and the other is a stay and maybe go to a restaurant or what have you, or go shopping.
Park
and then
once and walk.
And then and then park once and walk philosophy, exactly. And then Foundry, you have an 8-hour plus stay. And a lot of that is driven by the workforce program that's down there with the 10-hour stays. But a lot of that is driven by people who would rather or they're less motivated, so they're willing to walk. And so you're lowering your congestion, your carbon footprint when this happens. You're making it safer for walkability and bicycle safety. And if you have people walking by storefronts, they're far more apt to go in than if they're driving by looking for a parking space. So these are all positive things, which is why I wanted to speak holistically about how we manage behavior. And yes, revenue is obviously part of the discussion, but behavior management and the way we manage our assets as a whole is I think, to me, of paramount importance.
To piggyback on that, if we were to raise on-street parking rates, which I could foresee happening, and we could raise the resident discount when we did that, but that we're getting ahead of the discussion, I would assume we'd probably raise it to $3 an hour.
So you could go a lot of directions. As you're well aware, my assessments have been done. We're at what I call 2.5 now, 2.5 to go to 3.6. And have the same turn space at the 3rd hour, and then you'd have the same motivation $2 is the same, or $3 is the same for the first 3 hours, and the longer stay will continue over to Hanover where there's no escalator there, and the shorter stays will use the on-street. Hopefully, the overall occupancy will be reduced. It's 100. The peak was 170% for the last fiscal year, or calendar year. So peak meaning, noon and 6 when people want to be here. I mean, doesn't matter what's happening at 4 in the morning because nothing's open, kind of thing. But that's why we always talk peaks. But our peak for that on-street product is 170%. If anybody wants me to explain how we can have more than one car in a space, I'm more than happy to do that. Is that a yes or?
No, I think
You guys have all
you've
heard. Yeah,
educated
you've all heard my analogy. So I don't want to bore anybody with that. So the next part of this discussion at Foundry is after taking the resident free parking and leaving that in, is to move the monthly parking product to match Hanover. And the logic here is that we are routinely at 85% occupancy and more at Foundry Garage when you make your counts at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. And I can explain why 4 p.m. on a Thursday in the American Society of Downtown Workers or workers in general is important, but that's high. And we have 120 users a day on the workforce program, and we're limited down there on space. If we could adjust some of the folks and even that out and maybe push some of that traffic over to Hanover where we do have a little bit more space presently, then that would probably ease up what we have over at Foundry for folks that may live closer or work closer to Hanover but are using Foundry because of the price being lower. We also have about 15 vehicles that are long-term storage, and this would probably discourage that practice, which I think is a goal.
And aren't we losing inventory because the hotel, our parking agreement with the hotel?
Right, they have some of that inventory, yes.
So as somebody with a
And Sheridan too.
I don't
monthly
think I've-
pass,
I'm
I'm not excited for this, but I understand the logic, so I'll support it. My question is, do we anticipate, do we still have wait lists for both garages or either or?
So we're clearing our wait list at Foundry. We've seen now that once Hanover opened back up again, we've actually seen some people make that move back to Hanover, regardless of the price. So our Foundry wait list is about 105 right now. Lenny manages that. And we're dumping about 25 emails a week, and we're giving people a week to get back to us. We've passed the older versions of this where people have found another option, have gone somewhere else, and people are responding a little more quickly now. So we should anticipate clearing that wait list. We're at 315, I think, parkers there. We have 454 at Hanover. Our goal at Hanover is 500. Our goal at Foundry, 500 for now. Our goal at Foundry is 400. So we have some room that we want to put in, but we also want to be able to help drive that traffic to Hanover for folks that would use that garage because it's closer if the pricing were the same.
So we think with this change, we'll alleviate the wait list or make it greatly reduced.
Yeah, I think it'll encourage people to choose the garage that's best for them as opposed to the one that just happens to be
Cheaper.
fiscally different. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. I think that's it for us.
And before we do a vote, I just want to call out one change that was made. If we go back to page
Thanks, Michael.
43.
Oh.
Yeah, if we go back to the beginning of page 43, there was a note that was taken out related to an Easy Pass transponder discount, or what was the name of it?
Easy. It was called Easy Park, and
Oh, the Easy Park, I used to have one.
the city manager noticed this last year. Apologies for not having it out, but Michael's made the adjustment. It won't be, I guess, in the final
Here it is.
production of.
That's right,
this.
it's been redacted out of, and will be redacted out of the final version.
And that company doesn't even exist anymore, is my understanding, so.
Actually, they've gone on to buy a whole host of products that we actually use. That they own Park Global now. So yeah.
They exist in a different form then.
That product no longer exists, just like Blockbuster no longer exists. It's just outdated.
But it did let you pay for only portions of an hour.
True. Any questions?
The only thing I feel like I parked in High Hanover for a snow emergency. I thought it was $8.
Be flat 8, yep.
It is.
Oh, to
I thought in
explain
here it
that,
said 10.
we had 10 listed as last year, and I believe it was just agreed that we were going to go to 8 for both garages, so that's kind of what we did. This basically just goes and codifies the 8, what we're charging already.
Okay, so it does say 8 in here?
For this year, yeah, for upcoming recommendations.
Okay.
Well, now it says 10.
It says 10.
Okay, there you go. Moving to 10 from 8 this year.
Okay, I'm
Sorry
sorry.
for
Well, it's actually double it. Oh, we already
We
doubled
were
it.
at 8 and now we're going to 10. I
Right,
think.
but it says currently it's at 10 for Foundry for both. I thought it was at 8.
That was we actually charged 8.
Okay.
This
So
is
it
moving,
actually
this is
was
moving
8.
it to 10, which was in the books last year, but
Okay.
I think we changed it on the fly at the council meeting because we
Yeah.
thought it was a big jump from 5 to
I think it was
10.
me who thought it was a big jump.
So it's 8 for both.
yeah.
Okay, we'll make
No,
that.
excuse me, 10 for both.
So same as is.
But if
Currently,
it's gonna stay same as is, it should be 8 and 8.
It's,
But I think we should go to 10. I think the idea, well, I guess I'll leave it up to the
So-
other two counselors, but the idea was to,
I think
Get
to
there
keep,
slowly.
I think to keep it at 10, but actually practice that now as opposed to charging less than what it says in the fee book.
Okay, so what should our fee be in the book?
10,
So the book is correct. as
correct. The
printed.
book will remain unchanged. We'll just, in practice, we won't charge 8, we'll charge 10.
So.
Yeah.
De facto 10.
Now, yeah, that was an after the fact change last year that went from 10 down to 8 and respect. So, yeah.
Because I argued when you put it up, so like,
All right, so we need approval with the amendment.
make a motion to approve as amended.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Lenny.
All right, after parking and transportation, we now have Al Pratt for water and sewer. So Peter, you'll be
Just
staying.
gets to stay,
At the table.
stay.
Here for more support.
These changes begin at page 48.
Thank you, yeah, and there are quite a few changes this year in the water sewer fee schedule. Some of these, a lot of these actually came out of the water sewer rate study, as you'll see how later I'll get into those. But the first few here are really just sort of recalibrating. A lot of these items haven't been adjusted in the past 10 years. So it's really going back to see true costs, the customers that we were charging and making sure we were recouping our costs. So the first one here, delinquent tag. So after someone hasn't paid their bill and they get their first letter saying that they're delinquent, a couple of weeks goes by and we need to have staff go out and actually green tag them to let them know that they need to get in touch with us for the payments. And that's just a timing thing for our staff to go out there and hang those tags. Final billing request increases $10. That hasn't changed in the past 13 years. We're changing that from $40 to $50. And you did remove that, okay, good. Turn on and turn off fees going from $40 to $60. Again, that's just the time it takes for our staff to go out and make these changes. We are adding the turn on and set meter and turn off and remove meter this year, because oftentimes those turn on and turn off turn into more than that. They need to actually pull the meter or reset a new meter, so there's more time associated with that. So we're adding that with some additional costs to make up for that time. Frozen meter repairs. These are both being set at $160 because it's the same amount of time. Just take the meter out, bring it back to the shop, replace the parts, test it, and bring it back. So again, both of those are going up just to recapture the cost it takes to do that work.
can I ask a question? Why would a resident cause a meter to freeze?
If it's in an unheated
Empty.
space.
Unheated
and
space.
Okay, so it is,
crawl
I don't
space or
heat my
something,
basement,
They
for
don't
the
use
record.
it. something
okay, so it would be
happens.
something the resident
It's
would
on
have
there, yeah.
Influence over.
Right,
Okay,
right,
all right,
it's
that
really
makes
their
sense then.
responsibility, right. Meter reading system repairs, again, it's sort of customers cutting wires or taking off their, the meter on the side of their house without knowing what it is. And we have to go out and splice on a new one, so that's time to do that. Meter testing, if the customer has a complaint that they think their meter's not working correctly, we'll take it back to the shop, test it out. If it proves out that it is reading correctly, we charge them this. If they're correct and it is reading incorrectly, we don't charge them and we meter it for them. So,
That's all on that page. Next,
I was gonna add, before you moved on to the next page, we also did have a change on the delinquent tag.
thank you. Right.
Um,
That was after a $150 threshold on the bills. That triggered that green tag part of it. Now we're just increasing that. Costs are going up. It's a little more appropriate. So next page, hydrant rental, the meter rental application. This is just to recoup administrative costs with when someone rents a meter. These are usually construction companies or such when they need to put a meter on a hydrant. Have a deposit associated with that. There's also our involvement in tracking the meter and testing the meter before it's deployed. Backflow tests, that has gone up $40, just the time it takes to run these tests. And we're changing also the test repeat to be the same cost, since it's really the same amount of work to go out and run these tests. We have over 2,500 backflow devices in the system to protect the water
I
supply.
have one. I get the letters every year.
There you go. And our crews are out there, especially in April. They're really busy doing that.
So you should be getting letters soon.
I'm usually never there when they come.
And then the backflow permit application, again, that's just increased for administrative costs to keep up with that. Bacteria testing and sampling, so whenever a new water main goes in, it needs to be disinfected, flushed, and we are taking responsibility to test that and make sure there's no bacteria in that before it goes online, according to AWWA specifications. So there's time involved for our staff to take that sample, and there's also increasing costs in the bacteria tests now that our water quality labs have consolidated to basically 2 labs now that we can use. Those costs have gone up. And that's it for those. Now, the next section here are all recommendations from the water sewer rate study. The water sewer fee change here, though, so this is sort of that fixed fee to provide water services. This hasn't changed in the past 24 or more years here, and it's a way to recoup costs associated with the infrastructure that's in the ground, that's our ability to serve these customers. And I will say here that it's important that accepting these changes here are really contingent upon the acceptance of the tiered structure. We wouldn't want to apply these fees if we didn't change the tier structure and give those lower water users a break. Kind of balances that off. So there's a caveat in there that mentions that.
And I don't think we need to go into detail here, but if anybody is watching this and has questions why they're increasing the way they are, there's the whole water sewer work session that explains it in detail.
Yeah. And we're getting a lowering of the monthly volume charge.
So lower users, right?
I mean, net it's an increase in the high single digits, right? 6-7%.
6.5 for average.
Yeah.
household.
And the vast majority, looks like 9,000 of our meters are in the first 2 smallest sizes.
Right.
So,
Most residential
I think-
houses are the smaller sizes.
right, the
The 5/8 and the 3/4.
commercial ones, are,
You get into the
I
4
don't
to
think
6.
present any strain.
Perhaps I think I've asked this question before, because at least once a year, a resident will reach out to me about things like filling up a swimming pool. In some towns in New Hampshire, they'll come and disconnect the sewer, like they'll just charge you for the water, not the sewer, because it's going in a swimming pool.
Yeah, we
And I don't believe we do that,
We don't do that.
And
The
we-
water ends up going someplace, right? So,
so we have no plans to do that.
not this time.
No, usually they have a tanker truck come in and we have a meter that they fill the truck up and then they go fill the pool. And then that helps them because that gets the discounted rate, because you're not paying the sewer portion of it.
Move on, hydrant service fee to municipalities. This is an annual typical increase of $25. I believe we're going to be increasing that $50 from here on based on the recommendations from the rate study. That is the general fee to recoup fire protection services through our hydrant system. So let's see, no changes in the fire services based on the rate study. Those we are recouping a appropriate amount of revenue from our fire service. Water capacity surcharges, there's some major increases there. This was also discussed as part of the rate study work session. Water capacity surcharges, some of those lower tiers are going up 136%. So pretty substantial increases there, but it really reflects that new demand for a new user to buy into our water system.
I'm sorry, can we go back a second? What are you considering the fire services that you talked about? That
So
you worked-
buildings that have their own fire services, it's based on the service size.
Oh, okay, so they actually, okay, now I get it.
Yep.
I'm like,
Separate line into the building.
Sprinkler system.
well, I have a sprinkler system, but I don't have a meter attached to that sprinkler system.
You don't,
so-
it's charged by the pipe diameter. that's going in
Okay.
there. So that should be included.
Only
in
if it goes
your
off
bill.
though, right?
So far, nothing has changed from what we talked about on the work session, right? Although there was some discussion, particularly by the mayor, of can some of the costs be shifted to the commercial users?
So we're preparing a response to that question, and it's really the key to charging fees is that it has to be legally justified, and we believe we're making the recommendations that bring a reasonable, justified rate to industry and commercial, as well as our irrigation. So at this point, we understand the request, and we would say we have accomplished what the goal has been asked. So, but we'll be responding with a memo and a discussion at a future.
One of the April meetings.
Yeah, one of the April meetings.
Okay.
I think it makes sense for us to approve these and then have that discussion at the full council level.
But you can't, equal protection under the law, you can't you can't focus on one group over another. You know, we ran into this with the irrigation meters when we first started, if you recall. The commercial folks felt that they were being picked on because penalized for not being allowed to have irrigation meters.
For the record, as a also business owner who owns my condo, I pay a surcharge to Unitil for my office, but not my house. Believe it or not, the base rate is like more than double what the commercial one is. So I always have this argument: if they can do it, why can't others?
Well, then you would need to go to the PUC to make that argument.
I like it always drives me crazy. Like when I'm not using gas in the summer or whatnot, I'm like I have an $80 bill every month for my little 720 square feet. Yet my bill at home is $35 for my giant house. It drives me a little crazy.
Maybe the PUC let them do that.
Exactly. Well, I think there's an argument there.
Yeah?
Are you covering sewer too?
Yeah, moving on, yeah, so the
Eric's-
sewer service
Eric,
fee.
is home recovering from he had surgery the last week and he's still recovering.
So sewer service fees, these are new as recommended by the Water Sewer Rate Study. Again, similar to the water sewer fee.
Once again, the capacity, we adjusted that along with it. Yeah.
This was the ordinance.
Yeah, this will be coming forward, we requested to establish a date,
First reading, I think.
first reading.
I think we,
First reading will
I think
be
Monday
April
we did
6th.
that.
The public hearing,
Yep.
second reading is April 20th.
Yep.
Okay, then the connection fee.
Yeah, sewer capacity surcharge, similar to water, increased there. The sewer surcharges per DOD and TSS per pound, those increases that were discussed during the work session. And finally, sewer connection permits, they're no longer, reviews not required by the DES, so that fee has been removed. And now sewer connection application increased $40 just for our processing.
What was the one that had been
Sure.
removed?
Yeah, you already took it out, so. It's
Oh,
not-
okay.
not-
I got
we
it
don't
now.
see it.
Yeah, see it, I see it, I see it.
I was like, I didn't see one for that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the water and sewer fees as presented,
I'll second.
because we didn't change anything, right? That I remember.
All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, we have
Scott Park.
Todd here to present our changes for Park Road.
Afternoon, Todd Henley, Recreation Director, joined here by Tim Bailey and also Judy Rudeau. If you have any questions?
Page are we on?
We are starting with
56.
56, yes, that's correct.
I didn't keep track.
So just to start, a little clarification that the Recreation Department manages the Prescott Park Marina, more specifically Tim down there, and then Judy and the funding is managed by the trustees, so just for that. So with the marina fees, we're just trying to update the fees to continue to be more in line with other local marinas and create a bit more separation between resident and non-resident rates.
I always appreciate that.
I know you do. So we're going up $1 for hourly rates for non-residents on the wood docks across the board. Up $1 for hourly rates for non-residents and residents on the cement docks. Up $5 for overnight rates for non-residents. Going up $12 for seasonal docking rates for non-residents. There is a correction, just a resident rate for the season that we had to correct from last year. And then at the end of the Prescott Park Marina stuff, there we went up $1 for utility uses per day, and up $20 for utility use per season. And the utilities down at the cement docks are the water and electric.
Still a great deal compared to any of the private marinas.
Yes. And then if we continue on, also the Recreation Department books the pavilion at Fort Tree Island, and we also book all of the weddings in Prescott Park. So we did have a couple of changes to the wedding fees. Wedding fees are only charged to non-residents, and we moved the wedding fees for having 1 to 10 guests up to 200, 11 to 74 guests up to 500, and 75 guests or more up to 1,000.
Is there a fair amount of cleanup after a big wedding?
That's probably more a question for
Typically not. It's usually they bus in, they all take pictures and do whatever and then leave.
Well, I propose we approve the fee schedule for Prescott Park as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, for the recreation directors here? Spinnaker Point, most politically unpopular thing in the world. We haven't increased those fees in a couple of years, and, cost of employees, electricity, everything has gone up, and it's a screaming deal. Those fees seem like they're set a little too low to me.
We did discuss that, and we were talking, we actually talked about that at the rec board too. My intention was to go up next year. I don't have it right in front of me, but I think we went up in 23.
It's actually probably in here because we have everything.
Yeah.
There's recreation.
And do you happen to remember the total number of annual subscribers and how many are seniors? I think it's like 1,200 and 900.
Yeah, it's probably about 1,200-1,300 are what we consider senior rate, which is 60 and over. We have about 1,800 current.
1,800 total,
Yeah.
1,200
Spinnaker Point,
That
here
and
it is.
majority of it.
seniors.
No, it's near the beginning.
No, it's
Oh, yeah.
it's on page 35.
Yeah, it's got that.
Page 35. So
23.
fiscal year 23 is the last time. Yeah.
So we did recognize that, and again, my plan was to probably go up next year, but I'm happy to hear if there's
I
discussion
see
about
us
that.
in such a tough budget year that we're losing money anywhere where we could be charging fees, especially something that is
Especially if
not
non-residents.
essential and has not residents. It's a luxury item to have Spinnaker Point. It's not like the fire department where you can't not have a fire department. I just want to make sure we're not leaving unfunded costs with this fee structure. I would support, even if it came back at a later time, I would at least support.
technically we didn't make a motion on recreation because there were no changes in recreation, so
I
we
wouldn't
could
know which
actually
numbers
do
to
that.
go to, so that might be tricky.
That is true, yeah. Last year, we did add in a processing fee of $25, so no matter what, it's essentially, a joint fee of $25, so we did do that too.
But you can pay online now.
Yes.
We did do that as well.
$25.
Yeah, the only old price is daily guests of non-residents hasn't been changed since fiscal year 12.
Do we get a lot of daily guests?
We do.
Might be good at going up on that.
Alright, let me try a motion here.
I wouldn't wanna go up on residents, just non-residents.
Yep. So I'm thinking move to change the yearly adult non-resident fee from $440 to $475. The adult non-resident per month from $38 to $42. Senior citizen non-resident from $220 to $250. And senior citizen non-resident monthly from $20 to $22. Daily guest fee non-resident from $10 to $15.
I'd second that.
And then I'll defer to the experts at the table if those numbers seem out of line or anything like that. I just kind of tried to bump them, say 20% or something like that.
All right, so adult non-resident, yearly $440 to $475.
Yep.
Monthly, $38 to $42.
Yep.
Senior citizen, yearly, $220 to $250.
Yep.
Monthly, $20 to $22.
Yep.
Daily non-resident guest, $10 to $15.
Correct. Got him.
I'll catch on that. Okay, you
All
got it.
in favor?
Aye. Look at that, we made extra changes.
What's happening to our operating costs over there?
Todd?
Sorry?
Operating costs over there, are they like energy costs and
The energy costs are,
anything really
I mean,
jumping up?
the real things that are high over there are the chemicals for the pool. That continues to go up. No, our energy costs are relatively in line. We don't see substantial increases or anything like that, minus the usual.
That may change.
It looks like somebody really used to find pencil when they went to do the pool ones. I'm just looking through that and there's a lot of
We did that
like
just a couple,
254, 23, like they're
2 years
very
ago.
specific numbers. Yeah, if you feel the need at some point that the pools have to be looked at for non-residents as well,
Yep,
'cause
we also were discussing that as well as something that we were looking at for next year. We've kind of kept the fees in line at the indoor pool because of how kind of SIP left everything and it actually put us in a pretty good position. But I think it is, it's time to probably do that for non-residents.
yeah, I understand your costs must be going up dramatically in certain areas.
Again, chemicals, yep.
We just took that over a year ago, right?
It's been like 3 years now, I
It's been
think.
2 years?
Yeah.
Gosh, time is flying. I can't remember. Well, if there's no more questions or anything,
Oh, we should
No
approve
members of the public.
The
Sorry.
motion, did we need to approve the motion for the changes, or we already did that?
we already
No,
did
we
it.
already-
You made the
okay.
motion, I seconded it, we
Well, but
voted.
we have to do the rest of the schedule.
What were we on the last page?
Yes.
That was it.
you
No,
were.
that was it.
It's the last department.
That was the
That
last
had
part
proposed
with
changes.
changes, so we were all done.
Do we have to do like a global?
No?
Nope,
You're good.
just do it line by, section by
Yeah.
section.
There's no one on Zoom or in the room for
In-
public
right,
comment,
so-
There's no one available.
unless you two would like to comment.
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.